This is the Sony MDR-1A, and it's Sony's successor to the MDR-1R. Now, I don't have the MDR-1R anymore, but I thought it was a really good headphone. It was a headphone with a nice, comfortable fit, had a wide, expansive soundstage, and a nice, sweet, kind of mellow tone to it. Now, it wasn't without its flaws. It didn't have particularly great noise isolation, and it was pretty weak in the very lowest of the bass regions. Since the 1R's release, there's been a lot of competition in the portable headphone space. So the question with the 1A is, have Sony made enough changes to kind of keep it up there with the rest of the competition, or has Sony been lapped this time around? Well, you're watching Lachlan Likes the Thing, and let's find out. The review units on this channel are purchased at retail and not provided by manufacturers. Join the viewers supporting this channel and get access to an exclusive weekly mini podcast by heading on over to patreon.com/LachlanLikesAThing. And thanks. Hey everyone, welcome to Lachlan Likes a Thing, the show where I take a thing and see whether or not I like it. Now, the thing we'll be looking at in this video is the Sony MDR-1A and how it compares against some of its closest competition in the category, including the Audio-Technica ATH MSR7 and the Bose QC25. Now, I have had the MDR-1A for 6 months now, which makes this a fairly long-term review. And full disclosure, I bought this MDR-1A through a friend who works at a Sony retail store. So I was able to buy this headphone for well below the recommended retail price in Australia, which is 399 Australian dollars. Now, at the time I'm making this video, the street price for this headphone is around 230 US dollars on Amazon. Anyway, let's take a closer look. The MDR-1A looks almost the same as its predecessor, and that's a good thing. It's a gorgeous design with curves in all the right places. A special highlight is the polymer driver, which is set into the baffle like a jewel. Build quality is strong throughout, and the mixture of metals and plastics deliver a headphone with a comfortable weight of 225 grams. 2 sets of sturdy cables are included, with and without a smartphone remote. The headphone folds flat, but otherwise doesn't fold up into any creative shapes like some of its competitors. Now, a big selling point of the MDR-1A is that it's a really comfortable headphone. The ear pads are really plush and pillowy, and when you put them on your head, they just feel great. The pressure distribution of the ear pads against the side of the head is really even. The headband is really well shaped. This is a good feeling headphone. Now, one thing to note is that the ear cups are shallower than some of the other headphones in this category. So your ears might touch the inside of the headphone. But apart from that, this is one of the most comfortable headphones that I own alongside the Beyerdynamic T51P and the Bose QC25. Unfortunately, if comfort is really good on this headphone, then isolation is really bad. So if you're wearing this on a bus or on a train, you'll find that the external noise leaking into the ear cup is enough to really damage your kind of experience when you're listening to music. And I honestly think that this should be a deal breaker if you are thinking of buying this headphone to use on a daily kind of mass transit commute. It just doesn't offer very much noise isolation. You can basically hold a whole conversation with someone while music is playing on the 1A, and that's definitely not ideal. Now, the MDR-1A is a really unique sounding headphone, and it's definitely a headphone for people who are after more of a mellow or kind of a relaxed sound, a warmer kind of tone, but who still want to get a lot of high frequency detail. And that's probably where the most unique characteristic of the 1A lies. Just like with the 1R, it has a really extended high frequency section with a lot of detail, a lot of texture in the high frequencies, and a really wide, expansive soundstage. But at the same time, what's really interesting about the high frequencies on the 1A is that even though they're kind of emphasized, they aren't sharp or aggressive. So You get this very broad emphasis on the highs with a lot of shimmer and a lot of texture, but nothing is sharp or aggressive. There's no strong peaks on any of the kind of S notes or any kind of sibilants. Now, the high frequencies don't always sound entirely natural. Sometimes with some violins or stringed instruments, they can sound a little bit too diffuse, but it definitely is one of the unique characteristics of the 1A sound. Likewise, with the midtones, with the vocals, the 1A is really smooth, it's really clear, it has this kind of bell tone kind of clarity to it. Overall, can't say enough nice things about the upper half of the frequency range on the 1A. But now we get to the bass of the MDR-1A, and it's with the bass on the MDR-1A that I have the most problems. Now with the MDR-1R, like with a lot of other kind of previous generation Sony products, they had a problem where the bass was okay, but it would just severely roll off in the very lowest regions, maybe around 50 or 60 hertz. And as a result, the bass would sound kind of anemic when you listen to certain tracks. I think that Sony, the approach that they've taken to kind of fix this problem on the 1A is clumsy, because they've now added a whole heap of bass with the 1A, and you certainly can't call the 1A bass deficient anymore. But the problem is that the bass they've added is, number one, it's distinctly not even in tone. So it's not like a flat kind of bass all the way down to the very lowest regions. It's distinctly humped so that you get more in the mid bass than you do in the very lowest regions of the bass. And the other issue with the bass is that the bass sounds sort of flabby and loose. It's not, it doesn't have that kind of tight slam or that depth or that sense of scale that you get with other portable headphones like the Audio-Technica M50X or say the V-Motor M100. And what this ends up sounding like is that it's okay if you're listening to acoustic tracks or tracks without a particularly strong bass line, because the added bass helps fill things in and everything just sounds a bit richer and fuller, and overall it's an improvement over the 1R. But the problem is that when you start listening to a track like an electronic track, that's when the bass really becomes overbearing. It's suddenly like this bass line springs out of nowhere and it's really poorly integrated with the rest of the signature. It's just really overbearing and somewhat flabby, and it takes on a sort of, it's just not a nice kind of quality to the sound. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think the MDR-1A sounds terrible. I just think that the bass is disappointing when you consider it alongside what the competition is doing for around the same price. Let's compare it against its closest competition, the Audio-Technica MSR7, which basically looks like the same headphone. The MSR7, I think, sounds better than the 1A. It sounds cleaner and tighter. There's less bass than the MDR-1A, but what bass there is has a lot more slam. The kind of drawback is that the MSR7 is a lot less comfortable, and isolation isn't so great on the MSR7. So because it's more forward in the highs and in the mids, it does mean that the signature can sound a little fatiguing or harsh outdoors. So it does depend on your priorities. Now, if bass was sort of like your thing and you wanted a stronger kind of bass response, I'd go for the V-Motor M100. It's not quite as comfortable as the MDR-1A, but I think it does the bass better than the 1A, and it still delivers a relatively refined sound signature throughout the rest of the frequencies. But even if comfort was your top priority and the MDR-1A is very comfortable, I still find the 1A hard to justify because the Bose QC25 exists. Now, this isn't to say that the QC25 sounds exactly like the 1A. I mean, they're both mellow sounding headphones. They're both warmer sounding headphones with a relaxed sound to them. The QC25 has less bass than the MDR-1A. It's still a little bit sloppy in the low regions, and the high frequencies aren't as detailed. But the big advantage of the QC25 over the 1A is that, number one, it's more comfortable than the 1A because the ear cups are deeper, which means there's very little chance that your ears will touch the driver. Number two, it has really amazing active noise cancellation, meaning that even if it doesn't sound immediately as detailed, you'll actually end up hearing more details on the QC25 than you will on the MDR-1A, especially if you are going to go traveling with the QC25. I really wanted to love the MDR-1A. It's a really comfortable headphone, it looks beautiful, and as you know, I'm a bit of a Sony fanboy. But it has some really significant flaws, so the end result is that I only kind of like this headphone. Now, by all means, it is a unique sounding headphone, so go out and have a listen to it. Maybe you'll really, really love the way it sounds. It's entirely possible, but I think that there are just some practical drawbacks with the noise isolation, and I just think the bass performance is just too sloppy for this kind of competition. As always, please like and subscribe if you found this video helpful, and if you check out the description of this video, you'll find a link to all my reviews on a Google spreadsheet. Thanks once again to everyone who helped get this headphone on this channel. You can talk to me on Facebook and Twitter, and happy listening. The Audio-Technica M50X, the Audio-Technica MSR7, and the Bose QC